Yeah. All right, a couple of quick announcements. Don't forget to sign the roll sheet when we pass that around at the end of class. And we'll have some interactive questions as we usually do. So please, open the browser on your smartphone or laptop and go to live.com. And the event number is 99802. So again, that's live.boxbook.com, and the pin is 99802. And let us know if you're having trouble logging into that. Our discussion leader today is Dr. Randall Roig, and Dr. Roig has had a distinguished and varied career that started as a grocery store cashier at the Winn-Dixie supermarket in Arabi, Louisiana. And while Dr. Roig loved having Fats Domino as a regular customer, he did not appreciate having mop the floors at the Winn-Dixie. So he left Winn-Dixie to become a popcorn popper at the General Cinema at Lakeside Mall in Metairie. He went on to receive his Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering from Tulane, where he graduated summa cum laude. I wish I could say that about me, but I did not graduate summa cum laude, but Dr. Roig did. And he received his medical degree from LSU School of Medicine and did his residency at LSU School of Medicine in Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, where he served as the chief resident. After 17 years in private practice, Dr. Roig took a position at the VA here in New Orleans, where he serves as the Associate Chief of Staff for Education, the Chief of the Pain Medicine Section, or as I like to say, the Chief of Pain, and as the Assistant Chief of the Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation Service. Dr. Roig holds faculty appointments with the Emory School of Medicine, with Tulane School of Medicine, and with the LSU School of Medicine, where he serves as the Program Director for the Pain Medicine Fellowship and as the course code director for the musculoskeletal system course. And he received the award for Best Senior Course in 2017 and 2018, as well as the Escalapian Society Excellence in Teaching Awards in 2018. And then he also received the Outstanding Mentor Award, which is a good segue to our presentation today. That led us to ask Dr. Roig to lead a discussion on mentor-mentee relationships. So Randy received an award, and then we asked him to do more work.
That's how it usually goes.
A couple other fun facts about Dr. Roig. He's a licensed tour guide for the city of New Orleans and leads historical walking tours of the French Quarter. He is an active member of the ACLU and Save Our Cemeteries. And his first job after receiving his medical degree and while he was doing his residency was conducting medical screenings at Orleans Parish Prison. And Dr. Roig's asked to give so many lectures that he is a bit hoarse today, so bear with him on that. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Roig, and we're very pleased to have you with us.
That's quite the introduction. I hope I can live up to my reputation as a popcorn popper. I'm very honored to be able to speak before you today, the future leaders of science in our country and in the world. Mentoring, it's something that's very important, and it's the reason I'm standing before you, because I have been very fortunate to have good mentors. What I'd like to accomplish today is to have you recognize what mentoring truly is, maybe how to get a good mentor, and just a few P's and Q's about professional behavior with your mentors and with everyone. So I'd like to know a little bit about who you are. So maybe if you could tell me in a word or two, who are you, so that I know who I'm talking with, either here or uptown, or where else is this on the North Shore too?
Yes.
At the Primate Center. All right. So let's see. Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay, very cool. All right, engineer. Yes. All right, very, very nice. Older engineer. That would be me, right? Well, I'm not really an engineer anymore. All right. Oh, cool. Yes. Wow. Quite a broad background here. Lawyers in the room too. All right. I really have to watch my P's and Q's. All right. Let's see. Yeah, all over the place. And Daniel. I've got a name. Okay. All right. All right. Well, I'm glad to know a little bit about you all. So while we're going through this, if you do have any questions, please ask. I don't mind being interrupted. And if there's something that you don't understand or you'd like clarified, don't hesitate. I did lift some of the talk today from the GROW model at the Veterans Health Administration. You can never know too much. You always need to keep learning. And I went through their mentoring education program in 2016, and I liked some of the things I learned there. So I thought I'd present them to you. So why should you have a mentor or multiple of them? I feel very fortunate. I have more than one. I've had many and still do. One, it's someone from whom you can model behavior. That to me has been the most beneficial part. Just knowing how to act, what to do, and how to react to situations. Socialization. Your mentors can introduce you to people. So invaluable to make those connections, particularly in your fields, which I always say medicine, the clinical medicine is such a small world. And I think your worlds are even much smaller. So I think that makes mentoring even more important for you than in comparison to me. And advice. Constantly someone whom you can, who is open to being contacted by you, and someone you can run things by and find out the best way to handle a situation. So who in this class has a mentor? I'd like to know if you have a mentor, yes or no. Wow, 100%. Well, let's see.
One person.
All right, some people don't. Yeah. I would expect that a lot of people at this point may not. And I think part of what we'll do today is to figure out exactly what a mentor is. I'd be interested to see what the answer to this question would be after the lecture's completed, because I think the way people define mentors can be different. Okay. Now I'd like to know what you think about what a mentor is. What does that mean to you when you hear the word mentor? What do you think? I'd like to see where you are in this.
Yeah. There we go.
Guidance, advisor, teacher, elder, critique, approachable. Yes. God, y'all are really smart. I guess that's why y'all are all getting doctoral degrees. The drinking, yeah. Those who have me as a mentor would probably God, a buddy, a friend. Yeah. Yeah. Inspiration. Yeah, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. Oh, they do that? They tell you the frequency?
Right, the bigger the word.
Ah, okay, all right. Advisor and teacher. So what is a mentor? So one of the definitions is a wise and trusted counselor or teacher. Yes. What a mentor may be, but not necessarily, is a friend. Your mentor does not have to be a friend. It does not have to be someone you even look up to. We mentioned inspiring, but they don't have to be inspiring. And they don't necessarily have to be a role model, but it's somebody who knows your field and who can give you sound advice, who can counsel you and teach you. So how do you choose a mentor? I think at this point, it's important to recognize that you are looking for someone who's a counselor and a teacher. And it's not necessarily someone who's a friend or that you look up to. That may not be the best mentor for you. And I think when you're looking for a mentor, it's important to keep that in mind, because the tendency is to go with the person you're friends with, or that you look up to, or that you want to go have a drink with. And it should also be someone who has the time to get to know you. That's a common mistake that I think people make, is they seek mentoring from someone who just really doesn't have the time. And to do a good job with mentoring, it takes a lot of time. If you're going to do a good job. I think it calls for some honesty on both the mentee and the mentor in asking and determining if that time is available. So mistakes. I've made lots of mistakes in my life. Anyone who knows me slightly will tell you that, will confirm it. And I've also made a fair number of mistakes in mentoring. I've felt that role models were mentors, and I hung around them and spent a lot of time that I probably should not have, in hindsight, wasted, because I didn't receive guidance from those people. And I've befriended role models, and I've gotten advice, but without structure. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with the GROW model, the structuring of mentoring. And if you know what that is when you approach a mentor, maybe your mentor may not be adept at structuring it, but if you are, you can add that structure to the relationship yourself. And the worst things that I've done in hindsight is I've missed opportunities to hook up with mentors who would have been great mentors, but I just didn't know what to look for. Maybe I spent time seeking out senior faculty members, thinking, that I looked up to them, great role models. They didn't have the time for me. I wasted a lot of time. I could have gone with an enthusiastic junior faculty member who had the time to spend with me, and I passed up that opportunity. I've screwed up so many times I can't count. But fortunately, along the way, I did find mentors. So I think it's important to recognize that this is a significant time commitment on the part of the person who will be mentoring you. And that's a gift that that person will be giving to you. And you should recognize that's a significant ask that you're giving. And so you should approach that in an appropriately dignified and ingratiating fashion. You should be thankful for what they're doing for you. I think sometimes people tend to take mentors for granted because maybe we're in an academic institution and you get into that mode of expecting people to teach you, and that's a reasonable expectation when you pay tuition and you go to a school. But the mentoring part, that doesn't necessarily come along with it. That's sort of a bonus. So you should think about it in that fashion. So how do you ask for mentors? I'll give you some best and worst examples I've seen. I think what I'll do is, and this is sort of analogous to asking for like a letter of recommendation, which I get asked for all the time. And that's a significant ask because it takes at least an hour of my time. So I'm going to give you the best and worst examples of how to do that. Best example by far was this, and I've gotten permission from these students to use them. Lindsay Bucktel, she was flawless. She emailed me, "Dear Dr. Roy, I would like the opportunity to meet with you to ask for a letter of recommendation. If you are willing and have the time, I would be happy to meet you at the time and place of your convenience. Sincerely, Lindsay." Perfect. And so I met Lindsay at a coffee shop. She was prepared. She came nicely dressed. She was over the top. She was in a business suit. She had her CV. She had a personal statement. She had her transcript. She was a medical student, so she had her board scores. And she even included a picture of herself. I was like, wow, this is over the top. But later, when I went to examine her file, it was a few weeks later because I was busy at that time. I opened it up. I was at home. And I saw the picture, and I was like, Lindsay. And, and I had all her personal statement, all of her materials. It made writing a letter for her super easy. And then later, I did develop a mentor relationship with her. And it was just so nice. So I'll give you the worst example. Yes, sir.
Would that also be an appropriate way to approach asking about a mentor-mentee relationship?
Well, right, yeah, you want to go prepared. You want to give, you don't want to say, hey, I'm Jill and I'd like to get some mentoring from you. You'd want to give them a CV. You'd want that, your transcript, your history, so that they have all the information about you to be able to advise you appropriately. Yeah, so the opposite example was I was busy at work. I was going to the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom really bad. So I was approaching the bathroom. It was like a single room with a toilet, and I was in the bathroom approaching the toilet, and the student came into the bathroom and said, "Hey, Dr. Roy, you write me a letter." So of course didn't have this personal statement or any of the picture. So the proper way is probably somewhere in between the two. But you should approach that. You should think about it ahead of time and go prepared.
Would you say that it would be good to maybe email the person first and broach the idea of the mentor-mentee relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I think an email to the if it's a professor, it is appropriate to let them know what you're asking for because it's a significant ask. Again, we reference the time factor. You want to make sure that they have the time. You might say that in your email. I know this is a significant amount of time, and if you're not available, do you have someone else you might suggest? And that way you give the person an easy and gracious way to tell you no if they don't have the time, because you want them to tell you no if they don't have the time. So your CV, a brief biographical resume of one's career and training, and it should be thoroughly prepared, of course. A personal statement, and that should contain your career goals, what you would like to accomplish, and your history. A transcript, and I think a photograph is nice for the person to have, particularly if it's if the person doesn't know you well. So what should you expect when you enter into a mentoring relationship? Well, you want to discuss goals, because the whole point of this is to get you from point A to B, and B is where you want to be. So, this is all about you and getting you to accomplish what you want to do so you can meet your goals. So you should have some ideas of where you want to be and what you think your short-range goals are and what your long-range stretch goals are. What are your dreams? And you should outline those in advance so that you can bring those to the table with your mentor. So what do you expect from the mentor? The mentor is somebody who can provide you a reality check. If you're about to get a PhD and you go to the mentor and you say that, well, my goal is by next year I would like to be the dean of the graduate school at Duke University, your mentor may say, well, that's a noble goal, but maybe we should talk about some other possible goals that might work. I see this all the time. People have nice goals, but they're just totally unrealistic, and we need to talk about some realistic goals. The mentor can talk to you about what educational levels you need to achieve those goals, what occupational experience you might need. If you want to be dean at Duke University, then perhaps we should look into a certain amount of publications and maybe other administrative. Maybe you want to get into administrative roles and not just in the lab, that kind of thing. And then the mentor should be able to also identify the particular talents that you have and what types of goals would be realistic for you given the talents that you have. If your goal is to be the dean of Duke University and you're not a great speaker or you're not a people person, maybe that's not the best route. So your mentor is there to provide a reality check. So what else do you expect from a mentor? Options. So once you've explored what are realistic goals and you have that discussion and you figure that out, then what are the options to achieve that? What is the quickest route to give you the education and experience you need and to develop the talents that you have? That's what you should expect from your mentor. And then what's next? So follow up. This is where things often fall through. you have a discussion with the mentor, but you've got to set a follow-up. So you should, once you set certain goals and things to do, remember we have short and long range goals. You need to set an appropriate follow-up meeting, and that might, probably is not next week in our cases, because your goals are probably fairly lofty. So you need to figure out, when are you going to touch base with that mentor again to specifically decide what to do, and to go through this entire GROW model with the mentor again. All right, so given this specific outline of what a mentoring relationship is, how many people have gone through this construct with a counselor or teacher and have done this formally? I've got to say, when I was where you are, I unfortunately probably not doing this like I should have. Yeah, that's about what I expected. But hopefully now, after this course, that those who haven't will have formal mentoring sessions. So what about the mentee? We mentioned this about being gracious and thankful and respectful. And I'm not just saying that because now that I'm serving in a mentoring role, because I am still a mentee with several individuals, and I am extremely gracious and thankful and respectful to them because I want them to continue to mentor me. So the attitude: kind, benevolent, and courteous. Thank you note. How many of you, and I don't have a box vote for this, how many of you have sent thank you notes to a mentor? Wow, all right, by email. Okay, all right, by email. And realize also it's tough, because if you have a good mentoring relationship, it does very often develop into a friendship, which is just lovely. But remember, when you're doing mentoring, you should be deferential. It's helpful to both you and to the mentor to foster the mentoring itself. So thank you notes. A lot of people probably have sent it via email. I personally love thank you notes. It's a good professional way to do things. How many people have actually sent a paper written thank you note? All right, well, all right. Maybe I shouldn't. For those of you who have not, I recommend you get some. It's just so useful as a professional to have this. Now I do this all the time, mentoring and interviewing, letters of recommendation, all sorts of things that call for thank you notes. But the number of people who send thank you notes is not very high, and I just see time and time again the results of courteousness and thank you notes. One example I can give is, and here's a good thank you note. I think it's just a card. It's very, it's because thank you notes should be brief. A good thank you note would be, dear Dr. Smith, thank you so much for the mentoring session. I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you, and I think that I now have a realistic path toward achieving my goals. I certainly appreciate your time. Sincerely, Randy. Specific state thank you, and that's it. I think an investment in stationery, given your stature as is everybody a graduate student? Yes.
Graduate student, anyone else beyond graduate student, like postdocs or?
Some postdocs. Okay. I mean, y'all are all bigwigs. Is my point. And so this is what you do when you're a bigwig. When I first returned to academia 7 years ago, and I did interviews for a residency program. We interviewed 60 candidates. We matched 6. And that year I had gotten, I think, only 8 thank you notes from interviewing 60 people. And every year I've done this since, and it's always about the same. It's like 8 or 9 thank you notes. It's hard to write thank you notes, a little bit of a pain. But anyway, first year I got those thank you notes and I put them in my file cabinet. The next year I got about 8 or 9. And when the interview season was over, I put them in my file cabinet, and I found the old ones, and I pulled them out, and 5 of the 6 people who matched had written thank you notes. Now, the matching process is a faculty thing of multiple people, so it wasn't just me, and I can guarantee you I did not think, oh, that person wrote a thank you note, I'm gonna, pull for them or whatever. But something, maybe subliminally, I don't know, but the correlation to me was just impressive. The value of thank you notes, you should do it. Letters of recommendation. This is something that you will very likely need throughout your career. You should, when you need them, you should allot plenty of time. By that, I mean at least give someone at least 2 months when you want a letter of recommendation. And you should provide the same information that we just discussed for a mentoring session: CV, personal statement, transcript, and photograph. You should always have your updated CV available so that you can give it to people at a relatively moment's notice. Good professional habits. This this is something I think that I work on all the time with students. Email habits, and for your generation, I think y'all are a generation Y for the most part. I think I'm Generation X. The big differences, I've read lots of articles about how to communicate with Generation Y. It's not always easy. I've sent emails and no answer. Send a slightly threatening email, no answer. Send a very threatening email and still no answer. And I'm like calling the dean's office. I get the phone number and I text the student. Bam, answer. So I'm like, text, there it's a text. So, no email. So email is like this formal, somebody explained to me, Dr. Roy, email is, I think it's, it's something very formal, I guess the way I look at it, snail mail. So people don't always answer it timely, but old fogies like me, and then people who are baby boomers, they think email's where it's at, and so they expect a response to an email, and so you should answer it in a timely fashion. It just doesn't look good. I learned. I thought I was good with email because I usually answer, within a day or whatever. But I noticed I don't know if you've ever noticed what the people in the dean's office do. I guarantee you, I email them and they get probably a lot more emails than I email them day or night, that email response comes right back. I mean, I guarantee you, probably if I email Dr. Ham, the dean of the med school, pop, there's the email, as if I texted him. It's so just recognize that, and so when your seniors or your mentors, if there's somebody who's important in your career, somehow you might rig it so that email like alerts you or something. Whatever you need to do to make sure you answer your timely fashion makes you look professional. Clarity, people should know who you are. I get requests for mentoring all the time. I probably have some in my email right now. If I could violate confidentiality, I'd show you. Guarantee I got some students emailing me, or residents, Dr. Roy, I would like to learn more about blah, blah, blah. Would you mind meeting with me? Blah, 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 blah. Signed, Sandy. I'm like, I don't know if Sandy's a first-year medical student, a senior resident, a junior faculty member, no idea. And signature. So it should be your name. You should have your school, your phone number. Now, some people are like, my phone number? I'm not putting my phone number on my email. Well, I mean, I get that. I don't have my cell phone on my email, but I have a job and I'm where I want to be. So I don't have to. But, you want people to be able to get in touch with you. That's a missed opportunity if they can. And you want to put your email address in your signature. Sometimes when you send an email, it's not always apparent what that is. If somebody wants to email you back, or a lot of older professors have their emails printed out for them or whatnot. So you should have your email address. And just a thing of etiquette. Well, I didn't put my degree there, which is MD. I see this a lot. When people do have a signature, which is great, you should put your name above that, how you like to be addressed. I see this all the time. People send me an email. So if I get an email like this, without this, that means that I expect to be addressed as Mr. Roy when you write me back. That's what that states. I mean, if I had MD after here, that's what I expect. I expect to be called Dr. Roy. You email me. And I get people who don't watch that. In the freaking medical school, I get an email, Dear Mr. Roy. I'm like, WTF. I'm like, it's a medical school, like you're trying to get an MD or a PhD. I'm a doctor. In any case, if you don't have your first name there, that means that you're intending a title and your last name. So you should put your first name. That personalizes it, and that's what you should do. When I send an email to people, I don't, because I expect to be called Dr. Roy. Now, if I send an email to Dr. Ham, it's going to look just like this, Randy. That's how that works. If Dr. Ham sends an email to me, he would say, because he's perfect. So the email if he sent me a letter, it would say, Dear Dr. Roy, blah, 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 blah. And his name would say Lee Ham, MD, and he would sign it Lee. And he would scratch out the Dear Dr. Roy, scratch out that and write Randy on it. That's how you do it. That's like flawless. Now, and of course I would respond to Dr. Ham. He signed it Lee, meaning he expects to be called Lee, and I would write him back, Dear Dr. Ham. So just some points. I think that's a good point, because I see like 80% of the emails I get from people do not do that. Speaking of names, I just mentioned pay attention to the titles. It's shocking to me how often that gets messed up. When you do the emails, when you're emailing people, you should be a little formal with it. A lot of people are like, hey, Dr. Roy, or hi, Dr. Roy. It should be formal. Dear Dr. Roy would be appropriate when you're in a professional setting. Introductions. I just gave a 2-hour lecture, which is why I'm a little hoarse. And after the lecture, this happens all the freaking time. Introductions in professional settings. All of you, like I just established, are bigwigs. So, I mean, you should always introduce yourself with your first and your last name. I introduce myself as Randy Roy. I'm no longer, once you finish college, you're a professional, you want to use your first and your last name always, without exception. So I tell people that there are 3 ways that you can introduce yourself to me later once I've met you in a professional setting. So some of you met. You can approach me if you see me at Wednesday in the square or whatnot in 3 different ways. I'll give you the example that's used 80% of the time. 80% of the time, professional people I've met. Hey, Randy. Hi. I'm sorry. Hey, Dr. Roy. It's Jay. How you doing? All right. So I'm like, Jay. Where do I know Jay from? Is it from a bar room? Where did I know I remember seeing Jay. I can't remember where they're from. The best way you should do it, and this only happens about 15% of the time, you should always reintroduce yourself. Hey, Dr. Roy, I'm Jay Smith. I rotated with you last year during my second year of medical school. It was the best rotation of my second year. It's great to see you again. Then I'm immediately put at ease. I know who this person is, and now I can strike up a good conversation. The third happens, I'd say about 10% of the time, and it always just blows my mind. It happened to me at UMC just last week. I ran into 2 students. The first one said, hey, Dr. Roy, I rotated with you. And the second one, hey, Dr. Roy, bet you don't remember who I am. And I want so bad to say, you're right. But I think I lied. And of course I do. I had no idea who she was. Just always introduce yourself with your first and last name and context. Reintroduce yourself. A lot of people, I think, are afraid to do that, thinking they might be rude. The person may remember them and then they'll be insulted. No, just say your name and give them some context. All right, photograph. When you give a photograph, I see a lot of this on photographs, on applications, on letters or whatnot. I've seen all sorts of things in the background. I've seen a beach. I've seen a toilet. It's worth a little money to get a nice professional photograph. JCPenney, they $50. You get a nice professional photograph. It's worth the investment in yourself and your career to have that. And pay attention to the resolution of the photograph. And when you're seeking opportunities at other institutions, consistency is important. What do I mean by that? Interviews, this happened 2 years ago, and this happens all the time, but this was a stark example. This guy interviewed, and when he interviewed, he had a crew cut. And the picture he submitted had his hair was all over the place. Now, so he interviewed in October, and the decision as to who was going to match was in February. So it was several months later. When the picture went up, people in the room, everybody liked this person. Nobody cared about his hair. But when the picture went up, people were like, who's that? You know, they couldn't remember. They didn't know because they couldn't recognize it. So when you get a picture, if you're looking at jobs or new opportunities and you're sending your picture, make sure it looks like you. You know, if you have long hair, keep the long hair. You know, if you have long hair in the picture, keep the long hair. You're wearing glasses in your picture, wear glasses when you meet that person. Just some good points, I think, about photographs and interviewing. Okay, those just some little tidbits about little sidebars in the mentoring process. Any questions about mentoring that you might have? Yes, sir.
Not necessarily mentoring, but what's something that's maybe small but off-putting when you first meet someone? I mean, it could be like some examples you gave, like a name or like a handshake or something like that. Maybe you catch.
You know, I'll tell you. I think there are a few things. I'll give you a top three. Number one would be the things I see over and over, and I'm going to say what I see over and over, not just with me. I'm not going to give you my pet peeves, but what I see other people complaining about. Number one is attire. When you are seeking a new mentor or you're seeking a new opportunity, you should probably go to conservative attire, particularly for first impressions. It's important, you know. I am a conformist. Look, I showed up here in a suit. So, but this, I'm not going to wear this tonight. I'm going to put on jeans and, you know, and cash. But, you know, some people, I think, don't stick to the convention, and that can be harmful, I think. Gum chewing is that's just like spit the damn thing out. It's not no gum when you're in that kind of setting. And the phone. That is something, that's the one thing I've seen people complain about when they see people hanging around or in any kind of setting, is if you're on the phone in the presence of superiors or whatnot, then it looks like you're not paying attention to them. And people find it off-putting, as you said. So the phone is just something, you know, I carry my phone with me, and I look at it occasionally. But like I said, I have a job, so I don't care. But you know, those are what I see people complain about. Yes.
Oh, so okay, like when you have like the mentor-mentee relationship, obviously at some point you might have to ask them for a recommendation letter, like you noted. What would you say would be an appropriate like time frame of like saying, oh, I need this letter by such and such time? Like how much time would you say to give the writer?
Okay, so to write a good letter of recommendation probably takes at least an hour of someone's time. Minimum. If you have a mentor relationship with them, it's probably going to be longer, because they're going to, to write a good letter, they're going to have to think about it and make sure it's good. So, and chances are the mentor you're going to ask is a busy person. And so you should allot at least, I personally think minimum 6 weeks, but maybe longer, because that person may go on vacation, and the last place you want to be with a mentor is like having to nudge them and like, did you write that letter yet? So if you give them plenty of time, you're not going to be in that situation. Yes.
Well, speaking of nudging, is it appropriate to remind them if, say, you haven't heard in like a month or a month and a half?
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, particularly if you did give them enough time, then yes, it is. And it depends on the person. What's enough time? I think. And it depends on the letter writing situation. If you're in a program where everybody's sort of got like this mentor and they're going to be like, I know several professors in letter writing season might have like 30 or 40 letters to write. And that's a lot. And, if you think about one person and, one letter being, the person has, and it takes a little over an hour and you have 30 letters, that's like a whole week of work. So the person, giving somebody 6 to 8 weeks notice, if it's somebody of that nature, even that's not that much advance notice. So, judge it. But if you've given them advance notice, yeah, you definitely should ask them. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Then they won't mind. Yes.
Stephen, what's your take on providing draft language or prompts within the letter of recommendation for the person?
Draft language or prompts. So, that is highly dependent upon the letter writer. I have known professors who tell people to write their own letters and give it to them and sign it. I actually went, it's make me sound like a total geek. I went on a letter writing symposium, and in the academic world, I was shocked when I was there. People know other people's letters, like from other institutions, because if you're in this world and it happens every year, you get the same person's letters, so you know what they write. So people sort of like know the game. I don't know. I mean, if the letter writer asks for prompts, then, I mean, you got to do it. And if you want that letter from them, then I would comply. If they want you to write your own letter, then just say how fabulous you are and, and just make sure it's written nicely. I will caution you this. Whatever you write that is going to somebody, for God's sakes, run spell check and grammar check and have somebody proof it. And you think that I say this and people always sort of giggle and like, well, that would be, because of course I'm going to check mine. I've read probably in the last 7 years, maybe I'd say 800 to 1,000 personal statements from medical students. So not slouches. I mean, they're not totally stupid, right? Do you know how many of those personal statements I have read that have been without grammatical, spelling, or capitalization errors? You know how many of those 800 I read that I didn't like, oh my God, I can't believe there's errors here? Two. This is how pervasive this problem is. One of the smartest guys I ever met, he was Teach for America, and he was applying to, he's now at Johns Hopkins internal medicine, just got a fellowship, very proud, Jared Pytel. I knew him personally, and I told him just what I'm telling you right now. And I said, have 3 people proof the letter. And then, and to make damn sure it's perfect. And he emailed me his personal statement in a Word document. And he said, Dr. Roy, would you mind taking a look at it? So I opened it, track changes, made about 20 to 30 corrections, and emailed it back. And my phone rang almost immediately. And he said, Dr. Roy, I gave it to 3 people, and they all said, looks good.
Uh-huh.
So if they're saying it looks good, they're not ripping it apart. They're not proofing it. I guarantee you, I've never gotten a piece of writing from any human being that I didn't rip apart if it hadn't already, assuming it hadn't already been ripped apart by numerous other people. Guarantee you. So just a word to the wise here. This is how pervasive this problem is. People don't proof their stuff. Crazy capitalization errors and like what the, anyway, just saying. All right. Yes.
So what are your advices regarding how to learn the day-to-day activities from mentors? Like this goal setting and recommendation letters happen quite not frequently, but how do we learn the day-to-day activities? Like, for example, in my case, doing research, making publications, such things.
So I'm guessing. So that's what I was referring to, like with the setting the follow up. I think that's important. Like so with research, if you're getting a project started, I think you might need frequent follow up because particularly in setting up a research project, that might take, because things change so much in the beginning, you might need frequent follow-up with the mentor to get things set. But once things get going, then, am I answering your question or is that what you were asking? Once you have a good trajectory set, then you don't necessarily need daily frequent follow-up or weekly frequent follow-up with a mentor. If that makes sense. Other questions?
Like one of my former mentors was a Star Wars fan, so I gave him a Darth Vader figurine at the end of my project. Like, would you think that such a gift would be a good idea in general?
Wait, to do what at the end of the project?
My former mentor was a Star Wars fan.
Oh, yeah.
So I gave him a Darth Vader figurine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. No, I mean, I think giving presents to the mentors is good. I work for the VA, so I'm not allowed to accept anything that's more than $9.99 in value. But if you, thoughtful gifts is thoughtful mementos is always nice for a mentor. It's just like a thank you note. Yeah.
I do have a question about
Yes.
when you were mentioning sending thank you letters or like thank you notes. So I'm eventually going to be applying to med school after I finish my master's program. And so when it gets to like the interview cycle and stuff like that, would you say like definitely send a thank you note? Because I didn't know if that was like doing too much, or I don't know like what the thoughts are on that.
Believe it or not, there have been articles written about thank you notes about just that topic. Is it brown nosing or not? And actually in some of the some people gave advice like don't send thank you. So when I interviewed for my residency, am I over time? When I interviewed for my residency, I interviewed at like 10 or 11 programs, probably 110 people. I wrote 110 thank you notes. I wrote everybody. Secretary, people who interviewed me, residents, everybody. Me, I write the thank you note. It reminds me of this student, a resident came to me and another faculty member one day, and he said, I don't like so-and-so. I'm like, why don't you like so-and-so? I love so-and-so. And he said, oh, they're nothing but a brown nose. I was like, brown nose. And I turned to the other faculty and I said, I don't know about you, but I like brown nosers. And the faculty said, well, I was a brown noser myself. I'm like, yeah, well, like, what do you want? Somebody's going to be like, F you, I don't care what you think. No, you want the nice person. So, I mean, I think writing a thank you note shows that you are thoughtful and caring, and those are characteristics that people want in a physician. So I think a nice, short and sweet thank you note, not something that suggests you're crazy, but like, they're just like, thank you very much. I appreciated the time. You're going to do interviews, hopefully. And do you know, I do interviews. Do you know how much LSU, I interview for LSU. Do you know how much they pay me to do interviews? Nothing. So I don't mind getting a thank you note. Yeah. And that's, mentors generally don't get paid either. So thank you notes in order. All right. Well,
We're at time, but if anyone's welcome to stay after and ask additional questions. And